Well, good morning one more time, YouTubers, tuberettes, and all you others. Short talk in the trailer with the old guy. I was reviewing last night's, I guess last evening's vid, and I did it again. I don't know how many times I'm going to do this. Apparently, maybe I'm just getting forgetful in my old age. I started in a story briefly about Warner Robins. I started in there and then completely lost track of what the story was. I was about 19 and I took it upon myself at that time. I was involved in a Baptist church there, and then I moved over later on while I was on still the same tour in Warner Robins. I was there 18 months, I believe, or yeah, about 18 months. And I moved later to a church in Macon, which is I believe it was about a 25-minute drive from Warner. But it's been so long ago, I actually don't remember how far away it was. But anyway, Macon's a larger city. And I started attending an independent, what used to be a Baptist church. And they were still in the Southern Baptist Convention, but they were fundamentally operating as an independent kind of charismatic church. There was a lot of the teachings about the gifts of the Spirit and stuff that was pretty hot stuff back in the 70s, kind of cutting edge. And so I started going to a different church. But at any rate, one of the things I used to do was there was a couple of hospitals and an old folks home nearby in Warner, and I'd go visit people just walking down the hallway, and tell the nurse I'm not here to irritate anyone, and just if anybody wants to pray or talk or anything. And so anyway, I met a nice older lady. I have no idea what her name was. At that time, she must have been in her 80s, and so that means that in World War One, that's like 1914. She was a teenager. She was kind of like a senior in high school when that thing broke out. And it went on for 4 years. It ended up in 1918, I believe, is when the armistice thing happened. But at any rate, she was talking about some of her memories as a young lady with me, and this is the part of the story I entirely forgot. The In 1916, as an example, it was kind of an innovation to get airplanes into warfare. Now you got to remember the airplanes they had back there were, you spin the propeller to start the thing, and it was a one or a two-seater at the most, usually a biplane. And you probably have seen pictures of biplanes. It had two wings, one low, one high. There's a guy in the cockpit, and they had a machine gun that he could fire, and they timed it just so that it wouldn't hit the propeller as it went by. So that was pretty good, mechanical work there to make that work, so they didn't shoot their own propeller off. But literally, the guys in the airplanes they'd have a little bomb, a handheld bomb in their hand. They'd stick it out the side over the edge and just drop it by hand on enemy down below. And of course, the enemy down below was shooting at them like crazy. But at any rate, the fact that there were airplanes involved in warfare, this woman took, and even in unto her 80s, she believed that there's something in the book of the Revelation. Now this part I'm probably going to mess up, but it had to do with I believe scorpions or something flying. Well, I've fouled that up, but at any rate, she took it as a direct verification of the end of the age, that was being acted out before her very eyes as a young lady. And so she was expecting the Lord at any time, that kind of thing. Well, I didn't try to correct her. I was 19, and I sat there and I listened, and I said, well, that's an interesting idea. There are a lot of signs that we could look at, and earthquakes and things like that. We can look at wars and rumors of wars. We can, and we haven't seen yet the plagues from on high being released, or perhaps we have and didn't recognize them. But at any rate, I take it as a normal enough thing for a Christian person to believe whatever year they were born in, whether it was the year 80, or whether it was the year 800, or whether it was the year 1800, or whether it was yesterday. That I think the ordinary thing to do as a Christian believer is to believe that the King of all history, the King of the world, the King of the universe, who is now in human form forever, could very well return during what we would call my natural lifetime, whatever that is. We don't know how many days we've been given individually, so estimating your lifetime, the only way you can do it is after it's over. But if insurance metrics mean anything, let's say the average male in America right now is dying at age, I don't know, 75. I just made that up. Well, in that case, I'd have 10 years. You see what I mean? So, could the Lord come in the next 10 years? I think he could, yes. But the signs, instead of talking about Sopwith camels, that's the name of the airplane, instead of Sopwith camels with machine guns fulfilling the book of the Revelation, we've got different tech on board now. And one of the things that I think is crucial to understand in my own mind, and I was talking with the pastor about this the other day, and of course he didn't care about it at all, was that here's an example for forever, the mark of the beast. You can neither buy nor sell unless you receive it in your right hand or your forehead. What is that? Well, for forever, theologians believed that was some sort of tattoo. And that's part of what made the tattooing of the Jews so egregious when the Nazis did that in the 40s and late 30s also. But we now have on board, this chip technology. They could make that fly as a working program today. I mean, we have the tech now. The deployment of it and actually making the thing work, and covering up all the holes in it, and oh, we left this back door open, hackers can get in here, or whatever. The tech is here. In fact, people are already being chipped. Not a lot of them, but it isn't for some nefarious worldwide plan. It has to do with they want to be able to get past the door where they work without having to produce an ID card. So they wave their hand over it, and they're going to convert it pretty soon. It'll be at cash registers and things like that. Or there's already another one, as an example, that will scan your iris, and once it scans your iris, that's like your fingerprint, and it's a one of a kind. And so that tech is already being deployed. These these devices in malls, as an example. I haven't seen any here yet, but the idea is that you don't need the artifact called a credit card. You needn't produce it out of your pocket, because once we've identified you, guess what? We've already identified your accounts, however many there are, and we'll do the debit or credit or whatever on our end. All we need to do is prove that you're really you. Well, that tech exists. Now, could it be used peacefully? Maybe it could. I don't know, but I don't trust it in any case. And boy, them cats are going nuts out here. I got all these feral cats out here. But at any rate, that was the thing I wanted to mention. The story I wanted to mention was that an older lady from like 50 years ago, well, not 50, but we'll call it close to 50, yeah. That was like 1979, 78, somewhere in there, yeah. Phew. Time's flying. And 45, we'll call it 45 years. She believed that the Lord could come. Now, she never saw the Lord come in the world. She's been dead for decades now. But it's important for us, I think, to walk in a sense of expectancy and a sense of hope. Got to keep hope alive. You need hope in your life like you need air. Literally, you require hope. But hope isn't just positive thinking, Norman Vincent Peale, maximize your inner self, all that junk. No, hope is saying that help is coming, and it's coming from the outside. It has nothing to do with our resources. It has nothing to do with our abilities. Another is coming to save, the Redeemer King, the King of Israel. And so I also, after reviewing my previous vid, noticed that I almost entirely zeroed in on Mary, which that is a big issue in my mind, so it's not so unusual. But the claims of the Pope, this didn't even start, I think, until the 19th century. So-called papal infallibility, what? That this guy, when he speaks ex cathedra on matters of doctrine and faith, he is like the scriptures without error. Where'd you get that from? They made it up. There's nothing about that in the Bible. The claims of the papal authority over a worldwide church, they've never given up their claims that the Pope is actually the only legitimate head of any legitimate church. And until all those other heretics rejoin Rome, well, then they're just lost, that's all. Now, they won't say that usually, but it's in their material. So you have a huge error going on with this Mariolatry thing, but the other thing having to do with papal authority, that thing's a train wreck right there. The doctrines of the Roman Church do differ from Protestantism and from Orthodoxy, and then there's a whole slug of independent churches that I don't even know if you can call them Protestant exactly. More like evangelical loosely. And the thing I just wanted to get at is that it's easy for us to kind of throw our hands up in the air and point the finger at others, and if those people would always and whatever. And but the thing that always changes us is never how terribly right I was on my doctrinal P's and Q's, how terrifically accurate I was on my guess of when the end of the world was coming. It doesn't matter so much about that stuff. Help is coming in from the outside, and so he redirects our lives. He starts you down a new chain of events where, poof, here it is. I've got a different job. I never saw this coming a month ago. I really didn't. Poof, I'm going to go off on a little reunion. I'm going to see some folks this weekend up in Colorado I haven't seen in 40 years. We were all working at a camp up there and working on a log building, and I was a young man, and I haven't seen them folks in forever. Now, the last time I saw them, I had a mental picture of them as a 24-year-old, and here they are, pushing 70. And so it's going to be an interesting trip. I hope it's a good trip. But I just wanted to just kind of fill in the blank on that story I forgot to tell you. I do that a lot. The old lady is waiting for Jesus. Well, guess what? I'm waiting for Jesus. And she taught me something. She taught me, go in for the long haul. In other words, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Go in for get some rhythm and just keep picking them up and putting them down. This is a long walk we're on here. And it's the idea of endurance means you measure your steps. And what I mean by measuring them is you simply keep doing them, and you don't overly exert yourself, because you realize that's drawing energy down as well. You'll need your energy further up ahead. We're going to have to endure. We're going to have to be very patient, and we're going to have to be praying for our enemies a lot. And so we need to learn those abilities, and then we need to learn how to practice them consistently. And so it's a consistent practice over and over again until it becomes the new natural for you. You can read books about it, you can do this and that, but the only way to really learn it is by doing it. And when you do it, you're going to foul it up until you don't. And he's so patient, he's so good that he won't allow you to flunk. If you need help like I do with patience, well, by golly, he's going to provide plenty of opportunities to learn right there. And it's up to us to remember, this didn't happen by accident. This wasn't a freak that fell out of the tree. This wasn't some crazy conspiracy against me. This is just the regular shape of a fallen world kind of slowly falling to pieces. And it's us who put it back together and keep things operating. During my section here, while I was on guard in this area, our area was clear. Our area was secured. We did our job here. We were good stewards. Well, he's teaching us to do that because if left to ourselves, we'll never get around to that. Trust me. So the lesson I learned from that old lady was, I to this day I really doubt that Sopwith camels were a special revelatory event. I don't see that. But what I did see was a faithful young Christian lady who had held to the faith, and even in her declining years, as she was getting ready to die, she still held true to the gospel. She still held true to the Savior, and that's the point, because the end times are about either your death or the death of the world. But one way or another, we will go to see Jesus. And if you're not one of his own, that's terrible news. I mean, that's the worst you can get. But if you are one of his people, he builds in us the path of discipline, the path of self-control, the path of generosity, the path of patience. All kinds of excellent virtues attend him, and we begin to start showing some of those in our own life as he's with us and operating, in our lives. So take heart. If you want to talk about Catholicism, that's okay. But what I want to talk about is the way that how, regardless of how doctrinally whacked in the head I am or anyone is, he nonetheless is greater than that and saves to the uttermost. It's about him. It's about his excellence. It's about his faithfulness. He's essentially the true believer. He's the man of faith. And when we trust God, we're trusting with Jesus and in him. With and in. And that's making all the difference over here on this end. That's all I got to say. You have a good day. I'm going to go out and find out what we're doing today for work. And I guess it's some kind of remodel stuff. Maybe I'll take a couple of pictures of it or something like that. We'll see how it goes. Anyhow, you guys have a good day, and don't forget to get some breakfast in you. I got some of those little baby potatoes hanging around. They're smaller than a golf ball, and so I had a chunk of pumpkin bread. That was actually my birthday cake from the pastor's wife. She baked me a nice deal of pumpkin bread, because they asked, well, what kind of cake do you like? I said, well, actually, I like pound cake, banana nut bread, pumpkin bread, zucchini bread, any of that stuff. But I mean, I'll eat cake, but to me, a lot of it's just air that has excessive sugar. It doesn't really taste like anything to me except sweet. And I don't know why I want to eat that. Now, chocolate's okay, but never mind that. We're not going to start talking about cake. Get out and get yourself something good to eat, like, say, a good breakfast. And you do some work today that you'd be proud of later on, that you look back and say, well, it took me a while. I was confused at first, but we got it figured out, and it's right. Make it happen. Have a good day.